Committee of Public Accounts. My name is Ferlin Christians. I'm the chairperson of SCOPA. I'm just going to give members opportunity to introduce themselves, and then the officials. Then I just need to announce, I think I'll do it now, that this is our last meeting with Mr. Dustin Davids. This is his last meeting with us. He has accepted the position in National Parliament as a researcher in a portfolio committee. So this is his last meeting with us, and he's been such a great help and very capable. It's very, very sad moment for me to lose him as a procedural officer. His expertise and experience, I'm going to miss. I know a budget will say exactly the same, but what a gem of a person we're losing to National Parliament. And from my side, and I'm sure from the committee, we wish him farewell and thank you for all the hard work over the years, your commitment and dedication. Thank you very much, Mr. Dustin Davids. I'm going to give members opportunity to introduce themselves, and then I'm going to give Mr. Davids maybe opportunity just to respond, and then we will commence with the agenda for today. Members, over to you. Thank you.
Good morning, Chair. Good morning, honourable members, and good morning, Mr. Davids. I'm Leon van Wyk, a member of this committee. I just wish to echo the words of you, Chair. Certainly, it has been a great pleasure and privilege to work with Mr. Davids, and I'm sure we're going to miss him. I certainly am, in the work that I've done with him, and he's always offered good advice, and has been it's been good to converse and discuss matters with him. And I'd also like to wish him all of the best in his new career. Thank you.
Good morning, Chair. I am Benedicta van Minnen, a member of this committee. I want to wish everyone a very happy new year, and I hope that it goes well for everyone in 2026. I think, Member Christians, you've got quite a lot on your plate here. To Mr. Davids, I'm really sorry to see you go. I think that you have been extremely central to the success of this committee, but good luck with your future endeavours, and I hope it goes well. Our loss is National Parliament's gain. Thank you very much.
Good morning, Chair. Good morning, members. Compliments of the season to all members, and may you have a blessed 2026. And indeed, Chair, I think I want to echo your words to say congratulations to Mr. Davids, and all the best for his new beginnings in National Parliament. And indeed, it is so sad. One has learned so much from Mr. Davids, as a procedural officer for SCOPA, and also in other roles that he has played. A very humble person, always willing to serve. I think please continue to be who you are, and shine and show how we do it in the Western Cape, to be dedicated and always on point to the task. Thank you so much for what you did for us as this Parliament. I really appreciate your work. Thank you, Chair.
Good morning, Chairperson and all honourable members. I'm Peter Johnson. I'm a permanent member of SCOPA, and I would also just like to echo what my colleagues have already said. Mr. Davids, thank you so much for everything that you have done for the WCPP and the citizens of the Western Cape. As the previous chair of the Finance and Budget Committee, I had the honor of working very closely with you, and we really do appreciate all your hard work over the past 2 years of this term of office. So thank you very much, and we will most definitely miss you in the Public Accounts Committee as well.
Hi, I'm Thomas Walters. I'm chair of the Premier and Constitutional Development Standing Committee. I do not know Mr. Davids, but it's very clear and very unusual for a professional staff member to be so praised. And I think I can just say that I can hear the appreciation and the good wishes for your future.
Morning. Good morning, Chair and everybody in the meeting. My name is Pat Lecker and I'm a member of SCOPA. It is good news, but it is also sad news as I come across with a humble person of a caliber of Mr. Davids. And for me, this cuts so deep. But be that as it is, I want to say to you today and even to everyone else that there's an English phrase that says parting is a sweet sorrow. Painfully so, I want to say, go out there and make your mark. Thank you, Chair.
Morning, everyone. I'm a French Mbombo. So sad, Mr. Davis, but not as sad in the such because you are going to more or less the same institution. It's a matter of that in a house, you go from one room to the other room. So we want to appreciate that you haven't left us completely. And also having known you not only as a member of the committee, but when I was on the other side, I know how efficient you are. Therefore, there's no way that we will let you go completely in the sense that as individuals. So any would always try to get some more of your wisdom whilst you are doing the other things. That's how people roll. It's about because of your institutional memory and also because of your skills, people will still want to latch on that wisdom. And now and again, although you won't be being paid for that, but there's no way we'll let you go completely. So all the best. I just hope that also you are still going ahead with your studies. I'm looking forward to read your PhD paper as well. All the best. Thank you very much.
So thank you, members. I think that's all our members. I just want to give Mr. Davids opportunity to respond, and then I'm going to have the introduction of the officials, and then we will start. Mr. Davids, over to you.
Thank you, Honourable Chairperson, Honourable Members. My name is Dustin Davids, and I'm the Procedural Officer of the Public Accounts Committee of the Western Cape Provincial Parliament. Chairperson and members, it's been an honour to serve you. My goal has always been to contribute towards the vision and the mission of the Western Cape Provincial Parliament, in the sense that the members must be supported in a professional manner. And that has always been my aim. And I want to thank this committee for keeping me on my toes, forcing me to go back to the books, especially when SCOPA started oversight of Part C of the annual reports of the departments of the Western Cape government. It forced me to go back to academia, to the books, in order to provide professional procedural advice to the members in order for them to conduct oversight over the departments. Thank you very much for the late phone calls at night, in the early hours of the morning, and allowing me to provide procedural advice, members. That was my greatest honor while I worked on this committee, to support each and every member individually and as a collective. Even most of the departments as well. Yesterday, I've had a long meeting with Provincial Treasury where I had to give them also some advice on how to better process, etc. So, Chairperson, from my side, it has been an honor. This is something that I will always take with me, and I'm always available for that telephone call, Chairperson, and to the members in terms of governance, in terms of financial analysis of the financial statements of the departments and the entities of the Western Cape Government, Chairperson. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much, Mr. Davids, and thank you. And like a committee, I gave everybody opportunity just to respond, and I think it's only appropriate. I think I'm one of the members that working, 7 years with you, 5 years in the first term, and now 2 years. So thank you very much. I'm going to hand over to the departments for introduction. Just to say that we have apology from the Premier, the Minister of Infrastructure, the HOD of Infrastructure, and also the DG of the province. So we have those apologies. And I'm just going to give over to the department for introductions, then we will commence. Thank you very much.
Good morning, Chairperson and members. I'm Henriette Robson. I am the Deputy Director General of Corporate Assurance in the Department of the Premier. Chair, if I may, I also want to wish Dustin all the best. He's got a long history in government, and he worked with a lot of us. And as much as you has experienced his efficiencies, I think we did too. So thank you, Dustin, and all the best. Thanks, Chair.
Good morning, Honourable Chairperson and members of the committee. My name is Ritvan van Rensburg, and I'm Chief Director, Provincial Forensic Services. And I also wish Dustin Davids well with his new career. Thank you.
Good morning, Chairperson and members and colleagues. I'm Bashir Rahim from the Department of Infrastructure, Acting Chief Director of Financial Management. And I also echo everybody's sentiments about Dustin. I know his face for so long, possibly I don't know how many years. And when the announcement was made, I was actually thinking for a moment he's going into early retirement. Good to know that he's still around and we can still benefit from him. Thank you, Chair.
Good morning, Chair. Good morning, members and colleagues. I am Shafida Andrews. I'm the Acting CFO for the Department of Infrastructure. And all the best to Dustin Davids on his new journey. Thank you.
Wendy and
Thank you. Good morning. I'm Wendy Hansby. I'm from Provincial Forensic Services. I would also join and echo the sentiments of the colleagues to wish Dustin well. I had the privilege of meeting Dustin just shortly after I started working at the Western Cape Government. Dustin, good luck on your new ventures.
Good morning, Chair, and good morning, colleagues. My name is Penyo Tava. I'm a director from Provincial Forensic Services, and I also would like to wish Dustin well with his future endeavors. Thank you.
Is that everybody? Can I proceed?
Chair, you may proceed. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Mr. Davids. Members, and we have Provincial Forensic Services with us and Department of Infrastructure. Members, we have the agenda in front of us, but what I looked through the two presentations from the Department of Infrastructure, and also I looked through the briefing documents of the Provincial Forensic Services. And I think what I want to do, because when I went through the two, I saw that Provincial Forensic Services have, not all, but when you go to the Department of Infrastructure, they have some of the cases down. So I think let's start with the Provincial Forensic Services, and then we can ask the department to add if they have anything to add. So I think it's Mr. Jansen van Rensburg that's going to do the presentation. Is that in order? Do you, members, you agree with that? Mr. Jansen van Rensburg, you think that's the best way to go? Thank you.
I agree, Chairperson. Thank you. I will share the presentation for the benefit of everyone, and I will then proceed with the presentation. Thank you very much. Chair, I'm just waiting for it to go into presentation mode. There you go. Thank you, Chair. So Provincial Forensic Services has been requested to brief the committee on the cases that it dealt with in the first and second quarters of the current financial year. Firstly, statistically overall, the caseload reconciliation shows that at the beginning of the financial year, we carried over 31 cases from the previous financial year that were still in progress at the time. In the 2 quarters under review, we created 17, or we registered 17 new cases. And in that period, we also finalized 12 cases. And at the end of the second quarter, there were 36 cases on hand. Now, a breakdown of those 36 cases were as at 30 September, were 28 were work in progress under investigation at various stages of investigation, and 6 of them had not started. The investigations had not started yet. Now, on the 36 investigations, I would like to share, there are 3 slides for that, and it shows the departments involved. It shows the sources of the allegations, and also the status as at February. Now, a brief breakdown of that, of those cases that were ongoing at 30 September is 13 of those involved the Western Cape Education Department, 9 the Department of Infrastructure, 6 the Department of Social Development, 4 the Department of Health and Wellness, and 3 the Western Cape Mobility Department, and then there was 1 case involving the Department of the Premier. The sources, if one looks at the second last column, and also of this next slide and the third slide, 19 were departmental referrals to Provincial Forensic Services for investigations. 15 of the cases originated from our internal but secure tip-offs line, where anyone can send allegations to us, and also anonymously. And then 2 were emanated from walk-in whistleblowers to our office. Now, the allegations, ranged from financial mismanagement to irregularities, theft, fraud, nepotism, and corruption. Then, if I may move on to the cases that we had finalized at the end of the second quarter, there were 12. And here's a bit more detail about those 12 cases. So you can see there, again, if one looks at the breakdown per department, there were, we finalized 4 cases involving the Western Cape Education Department, 3 involving Health and Wellness, 2 involving the Department of Infrastructure, 1 Social Development, also 1 Cultural Affairs and Sport, and the case of Department of the Premier was finalized too. And the last column reflects what the outcome, the high-level outcome of those cases were. And Then if one looks at, here's an indication, another breakdown of the outcomes of the finalized cases, and one can see the majority, well, a majority of 3 were involved non-compliance with prescripts. Then in 2 cases, we found indications of fraud together with non-compliance, and in 2 cases, fraud alone, and so it goes on, the different categories per case. Each case is unique and has its own outcome. And then Chairperson, also following those completion of those recommendations and the issuing of the reports to the heads of departments, we also make recommendations, and it's reflected there that firstly to your left, Department of Infrastructure, we made 5 recommendations to take disciplinary action, 3 recommendations for in respect to improve controls, 2 of civil recovery of money, and then in 1 case we recommended that the case be further reported to the police service. Then in respect of health and wellness, 3 recommendations were made in respect of disciplinary action, and 1 was in respect to take civil action. Cultural affairs and sport, in that case we recommended that the matter be reported to the police. Social development for disciplinary action, I beg your pardon, in 4 cases control recommendations were made, 1 civil action recommendation and 1 recommendation to report to the police. And then finally Western Cape Education Department, for disciplinary action recommendations, 11 procedural control improvements, 1 recommendation to take civil action, and then in 3 cases we recommended that the matter be reported to the police. What I can say in all cases that we make recommendations to report to the police, we engage with the department by means of the report, but in all cases we as Provincial Forensic Services proceed to lodge a case with the police. We draft the affidavit for a case to be opened. So that has been taken care of. What I must say at this point is that it would be because of the fairly short time lapse and our internal processes, we don't have up-to-date information as to the implementation of these recommendations. This is from September till now, and disciplinary action and control improvements take some time to implement. And then secondly, also our internal processes, we are only now at the end of February and going into March, following up with the departments on the status of the implementation of recommendations. That is why I was unable to share with you because of the incompleteness of the information. And that brings me to the end of the presentation, Chair. I'm happy to take questions from the committee.
Thank you, Mr. Jansen van Rensburg. Thank you for that presentation. Members, I wonder if we can just give Department of Infrastructure if they got anything, because it's the same thing. It's just there's cases I see that's not in the Provincial Forensic Services. So maybe then we can do the questioning together. Mr. Jansen, if you have some time, we can just do all together. Then you can also hear what the department is saying, referring to certain cases. So is it Mr. Can I hear? Committee, you happy with that? I think is it Mr. Rahim that's going to do the presentation for the department? Mr. Van Rensburg, you've got something to say? I see you. No?
Chair, I just wanted to confirm I'll be in the meeting and I'll take any questions at any time.
Thank you very much. Department of Infrastructure, over to you.
Chair, yes, I've shared a presentation, like you have said, and I'll just put it on screen. So our brief was slightly different in terms of timelines. I'm just waiting for the presentation mode to kick in. Our computer's just freezing for a moment. Wow. Just stop sharing. Let me just try again, Chair, just a second. I'm just going to reopen the presentation here from my computer, and then we'll start again. Just a moment. Anyway, Chair, it looks like I'm having a problem sharing my actual presentation, but it was actually shared with you. I can just add, in terms of our presentation, what we did was, because the timelines in the brief was slightly different, our brief was to report upon the PFS cases for the 24-25 year, those that were open at the beginning of the year and then still open at the end of the year. So our presentation really focused on the fact that at the beginning of the year, we had 6 cases that were open, the 24-25 year, and then we had 5 cases that were added, and then and 4 cases were closed for the actual year under review, and then 7 were still open at the 31st of March 2025. So what we included in our presentation was okay, I see Dustin is trying to share the presentation for us. What we included in our presentation was the 4 cases, a little bit of details about the 4 cases that were closed with respect to Department of Infrastructure. So those 4 cases that were closed. There we go. Thank you, Dustin. If you can just go to slide number 5 in my presentation. Yeah, so this one here, so this is the 4 cases that were actually closed for the year under review. So there are the different outcomes, and then we go into a little bit of detail about each one. So if you can go to the next slide. So the first one that was actually closed for the year under review, the allegation was alleged irregular award of a tender that related to the former Department of Human Settlements as it pertained to the extension of a contract. I can confirm there was no fraud, no corruption in that particular matter. However, because the contract was extended, there was irregular expenditure that was incurred. However, that irregular expenditure was condoned by the Provincial Treasury as value was received in that particular case. None of the officials involved in that particular matter work at Department of Infrastructure any longer. So there was no disciplinary action taken against anybody. However, those personnel, their personnel was flagged so that if any of them come back into the state in any way, disciplinary action can again be reopened. One of the personnel that was actually working for us when this matter was actually received from PFS, that person actually subsequently died. So as we were about to start the disciplinary process, we had to close that. There was no losses in this case, no criminality, therefore nothing was reported to SAPS. And on the internal control side, there was nothing to really to improve upon, because the former DHS now follows the established Department of Infrastructure internal control system. If you can go to the second one of the 4, so the next one, please, Dustin. So this one was an alleged jobs scam. It sounds like something very serious, but it was just something rather minor, though it is, we can consider it fraud related. There was a former Department of Transport and Public Works official that promised somebody a job on a forged DTW letterhead. That person complained to the department that we didn't get the job. We communicated to them that there was no such job offer to start with. It related to one of the lower bands, and that person doesn't work, who worked in the department, doesn't work for the department anymore. Their parcel was flagged and a case was opened with the South African Police Services. You can technically, of course, call this fraud, but there was absolutely no impact on the department, and there was no recommendation for any internal control improvements required. Then if we go to the next slide, which is the third one of the four that was closed that I'm referring to. This one again refers to the description was about a fraudulent reference letter received from one of our service providers. So they basically, in tendering, they submitted a reference which was not actually given by the particular place that they referred to. So in that case, a case of forgery was opened with the South African Police Services. From a departmental perspective, there was no loss, and our internal controls were not affected. Nothing required to be strengthened in that particular case. And if we go to the next one, which we included, which is the fourth of the four cases that was closed, this one, which speaks about an alleged fraud by a bidder. So in this particular case, a bidder who did not attend a compulsory site meeting, that person or that organization actually asked somebody else to sign the attendance register to make like they were actually present at that particular compulsory site meeting. From a departmental perspective, there was basically no loss incurred in that particular case, no consequence management required. However, we did take the forensic recommendation into consideration of adding a control that when you have these site meetings, that in addition to signing the register of attendance by everybody, we also have a system of roll call, whereby the chairperson of the site meeting will actually ensure that whoever signed the register is actually physically present and not one organization signed on behalf of the other. So that was essentially what was additional, Chairperson, in terms of our presentation. Thank you very much.
No, thank you very much, Mr. Rahim. Members, I'm going to allow opportunity to ask questions. If you do ask the questions, just direct it either to Provincial Forensic Services or the department members. Over to you for questions. I see first member Leon van Wyk and then member Nkontlo in that order. Over to you, member Leon van Wyk.
Thanks, Chair. The commentary relating to the tender meeting or the type of site meetings that take place with tenders and the attendance registers having to be signed, to me is very interesting, that adding the aspect of roll call, which I think is a very good addition. In my recollection, going back quite a number of years, relating to a municipal tender process for a road, there were a number of councillors who attended that particular tender meeting, and there was an element of misconduct, fraud that eventually arose out of that tender. And I know that there were certain recommendations that followed when the forensic investigator compiled a report. But to my knowledge, no action was eventually taken against the various councillors, which is transgression of the certainly of legislation. Now, I think that the whole aspect of adding in the roll call at such meetings would probably just add that additional level of protection. So, possibly that is something that needs to be incorporated a lot wider than merely, just at the Department of Infrastructure. So I'm just raising that at this stage just as a thought process, and I don't know if there are any comments from the officials on that. Thank you, Chair.
Thank you, Member van Wyk. I'm going to give this Member Nkondlo and then Member Pat Lekker opportunities, and then the officials can respond. Member Nkondlo, over to you.
No, thank you, Chair, and thank you to the presenters. Chair, maybe to start with the Department of Infrastructure particularly, I just want them to explain to us this whole notion of a person is flagged. And I'm trying also in my head to understand when they, according to the presenter, the veracity of the matter. How do they interpret it? Because if a matter is referred with recommendations by the forensic services and it gets to the department, is there a way of weighing, and perhaps forensic services can be able to indicate this, of the seriousness of these cases? Because it would be worrisome that there are recommendations, and when they get to the actual department as an implementer, they are seen as not that serious. So maybe the Department of Infrastructure could indicate, especially on the cases that the presenter was sharing, where they would have flagged and they would have said, no, there was no losses from the department. Because for me, one of the issues which I also would like both the forensic services and the department to talk to is that what does such means in as far as the control environment within the departments? Because when one looks at the presentation, especially now going back to the forensic services presentation, if one considers the number of cases, I think as they are outlined in the slides, it's around allegations of corruption, allegations that relates to theft, to financial mismanagement, when you consider them. So I'm interested then to understand from the colleagues, what does it mean for the control environment? And I'm raising this, Chairperson, with the fact that when we look at audit reports, there is a section or that we looked at, which always, according to the information submitted in the annual reports by departments across, including entities, it will say the control environment, is actually up to scratch, and one gets concerned when such cases come up. So that is why I'm asking, perhaps with both, to then give an indication with these cases, how do they relate to the control environment? And does the forensic services in the conversations with the individual departments, able to actually influence more strengthening of that particular control environment? And one would actually be picking up issues with WCED here, which has got, I think, more than 3 cases that are in the list. So I'm just interested to understand those conversations between the forensic services and the actual departments in trying to always improve and strengthen the control environment, around, this type of challenges in departments. Thank you so much, Chair.
Thank you, Member Lekker. Member Lekker, you next.
Thank you, Chair. Let me appreciate the presentations by the colleagues. I first want to understand, Chair, when we deal with probably a classification on how matters have been closed. In some of the matters that were investigated or were looked into by the forensic department, let me start. We got informed that there was a departmental referral and that the matter has been closed. Now, as Member Nkondo has already asked, mine would be to get an understanding check. If a matter gets to be referred to a department for control or for whatever, maybe DC or whatever, that could have been a recommendation from the forensic department. Having it as a status that is classified as being closed, my question would be, is it possible as a suggestion to say the matter has been closed, it is substantiated, meaning the allegations that were put against an individual or whoever, those allegations have been substantiated based on our findings, and therefore we referred it to the department so that we understand, because when it says it has been closed, for me, it means nothing. Or for a community member out there, because reports of this nature also have to be reported to community members, that as the Western Cape government, we efficient, we attend to issues that have been brought to us, investigated, so that tomorrow we know whoever is a whistleblower or anyone who's got information but is unable to share such information gets confidence to say, look, with allegations of this nature, I can go to that department and raise issues that I think are unwarranted. And at the end of the day, I would be pleased because there has been a track record to say, you bring a matter to us, we investigate it, and we give you the outcomes, because once we investigate, we deal with individuals who are alleged to have been problematic. Because tomorrow that will boost even an ordinary whistleblower. So I want to understand, Chair, is it possible when we say a matter has been closed, we then say closed substantiated or closed unsubstantiated? In the case where we say we didn't find any wrongdoings, for instance, there was an issue of a tender that was allegedly extended. A tender has been extended and the whistleblower feels this is irregular and it was then investigated. So I want to ask, but also making a suggestion going forward. That's the first one. The second one, Chair, is around a principle of investigation. In terms of investigation, there are schedules. There's always a minimum or maximum kind of arrangement, what do you call it? Sanction. So I want to understand from the forensic point of view, when we say a matter has been reported to the police or a matter has been referred to a department for processing, in cases where an individual leaves the department with flag, I want to further ask Chairperson there exactly, what are the necessary or the available sanctions and what may to the police. Remember, we're not members of the forensic committee, so I want to understand what information are the statutories that say in an event this and that happened, refer the matter to the department. In an event this happened, refer the matter to a police for an investigation. So I want to understand what are those prescripts within the form of investigation that dictates what must happen at the end of the day. Thank you, Chair.
Well, thank you. I hope that the department and provincial forensic service got that, because sometimes, Member Lecker, we could not hear you, but I think we could hear you for the most of the time. If I can just ask two more things, and then I'm going to go over to Mr. Jansen Rensburg and Mr. Ruthen, if you want to comment on that. But the first thing is, Mr. Jansen Rensburg mentioned, when they make a recommendation to the department, it takes some time to implement that recommendation. So what is the timeline? Do you have a timeline when you make recommendations to say, this is what we propose, that you have the recommendation carried out? And do you then get a report back from the department to say, listen, we have followed your recommendation? Or do the department have, can they say we disagree, or we think of a different recommendation because the case is not so serious, and that's why we say X, Y, and Z? If you can just clarify that. And then the second thing, I just wanted to know, the where an individual whistleblower walk in to report a case, is that individual protected? How does that individual know where to go? And is there maybe a frustration to say, I've tried the hotline, I've tried this, and because I could not get hold of anybody, I had to come in person to report this case? What is the nature of that, if you can just help us with this? Thank you very much. Mr. Jansen, first to you.
Thank you, Chairperson, and thank you for the questions. I will deal with it, try to deal with it in the sequence as it was posed. Firstly, Member van Wyk referred to the example that happened in another sphere of government, and he alluded to that he agrees with this recommendation, but can it be extended elsewhere in Western Cape government? I agree with you. And the process for us to take it further in other departments is in fact to feed it into our fraud risk assessments. So I will have a discussion with our proactive forensic team and ask them to do just that, particularly departments where you have this level of contracting and tenders, as in the Department of Infrastructure. So thank you for that proposal, and we will certainly duly consider it. Then moving on to the member from Member Nkondlo. What does it mean to flag an official? We make recommendations when, more often than not, during the investigation, we find that officials who are implicated, and particularly when interviews are held with them and when the facts are put to them, they resign. So they are no longer in the system. So the only thing that one can do is then to make a recommendation that the personnel system be flagged, that there's an outstanding disciplinary process to be followed. What that means is when they try to come back to the public service at any level, national, provincial, national or provincial, then it can be, upon assumption of duty, that disciplinary action can be proceeded with. even in the new department. That is why we want to keep those kind of people who the investigation revealed that there's non-compliance or fraud or whatever the case was, that they won't come back into the system with impunity. Then can we influence the control environment? Member Nkondlo, you alluded to the control environment and audit and all of that. Can we influence the control environment? I believe we can, and we try to do so in two ways. One is as a reactive measure after an investigation, and we've identified what went wrong and how did it go wrong through the systems and the procedures and the controls. Then we make specific control recommendations to plug the system from such occurrences happening again. That is very specific, case specific, but then also generally our proactive team is responsible, and we as Provincial Forensic Services are responsible for conducting fraud risk assessments every financial year throughout Western Cape Government for all 13 departments. And when we go through that process, we do take individual cases into account, but it's a risk management process to contemplate the risks that the department and emerging risks that the department could face, and then together with the department we facilitate that controls are identified, and if the controls are not sufficient, that action plans are identified for certain action officials or components to be responsible to implement those, and they are held accountable in terms of their engagements, and they have to report on the implementation of that. Then moving on to the questions posed by Member Lekker. Thank you for those questions. In terms of the classification of the outcome of an investigation, it is on this slide. You will find it on the slide of the presentation entitled Cases Finalized 1 April 2025 to 30 September 2025. And that classification is reflected in the column under outcome. So maybe allow me to speak a bit, use an example. Let's take the second example, the second line item. The classification is fraud and non-compliance. That means that the allegation was, or allegations were, substantiated. The investigation found evidence that alleged fraud may have been committed, and also found that there was non-compliance with prescripts, and that is our classification. Where the investigation revealed no evidence, that there's no evidence to substantiate the allegation, we reported our classification is investigation with no adverse findings, like in item 6 on that page. How do we report to the department? Upon completion, I sign off the report and I send it directly to the HOD. And in the report, the outcome of the investigation is clear. It is indicated there together with the recommendations that are made. With regard to the members of the community, yes, we are very aware of that, and we encourage members of the community to come forward and lodge complaints or lodge allegations. We do so by means of several proactive activities like newsletters. There are posters from Provincial Forensic Services at almost all, if not all, service centres where there's a contact between the public and government. We had a drive, we started that drive a few years back, so that the work that we do, our contact numbers and the encouragement for whistleblowers to come forward is there. We also do it electronically. Several posts are made on social media, the various social media. And I must say, we do receive many allegations, non-mandate matters throughout South Africa. Our tip-offs line is used and we attend to that and respond to it to confirm it's not within the mandate, it's not geographically or the mandate, but then propose other action or where they can report the matter. So it's important to us that we receive allegations and we try our best to make that possible. Then I spoke about the sanction. Now, again, after an investigation, when it's substantiated, there are different actions and it is reported in the report. If an official did something wrong, we make a recommendation for disciplinary action. If a service provider was involved with or was not entitled to money, we make a recommendation for civil recovery. And similarly, when an official or an external person has been identified having committed financial crime, we proceed to report to the South African Police Service. Then in ensuring that there is follow through of that, we make a follow-up with departments twice a year on the implementation of recommendations. We engage the South African Police Service and the National Prosecuting Authority more frequent, once a quarter, on the progress of cases that we had lodged with them. And yeah, then the questions, if I can move on to the questions from the chairperson. What is the timeline? It's difficult to, because it's case specific, it's difficult to say a specific timeline. If one takes a disciplinary action, the process further is then for the department to consider it. If they agree with our recommendation, then they hand it over to employee relations, which has also for 11 of the departments a centralized service provider inside the department of the Premier. They do their own analysis and work on that, and which may also take some time, and then concur or say why they don't agree and report it back to the head of department. So in view of that, there are further processes to be followed. It may take some time. The same with control deficiencies. Let's take, for instance, if we found that there was inadequate policies at a school, that may take some time to draft it and to have it approved by the school governing body. Even more so in terms of timeliness is civil recovery. A department will rely, with the support of legal services, via the state attorney to perform those processes, and court procedures are fairly long by its very nature. So that is why it's very difficult to take to put a timeline to it. But your second question was, do we get feedback? Yes, we do, and all the departments do cooperate. And when they do not agree with an investigation, with a recommendation, they provide the reasons for that. And the further step then for us is to report the outcome of all recommendations to the audit committees. So there is a level of transparency to that and accountability. We are satisfied with the process internally to deal with that. Then with regard to whistleblowers, protection of whistleblowers and whether there's frustration. I'm not aware of frustration. I think we are quite accessible in various ways. I hope we are sufficiently accessible. But with regard to protection of whistleblowers, there are legislative mechanisms. The Protected Disclosures Act provide that occupational detriment may not be taken by an employer against a person for having blown the whistle. So there are labor law remedies built into that. But a number of years back, we drafted Western Cape Government transversal whistleblower policy, and we went beyond the current legislative provisions in that for financial crime, we indicate there that such a whistleblower is able to report it anonymously to the Provincial Forensic Services. And in my view, that is the best safeguard for any whistleblower who's concerned about his or her life. And we honor that. We don't record the names. If a person, that's one of the first questions, would you like to remain anonymous? And if the answer to that is yes, our processes are not to record them, even if they names or details or anything. So we keep to that undertaking in the whistleblowing policy, and we've seen that work time and again where people are comfortable who might otherwise be in precarious positions, but they are comfortable to come forward and report. And ultimately, all that we are interested in is the allegation, if it can stand on its own, to take that further, if it's possible to take it further. Chairperson, I hope I've answered all the questions by the members, and I'm happy to take further questions.
Thank you very much. Mr. Rahim, you got anything to add, or can I continue with members?
Chair,
yes.
Advocate Jansen van Rensburg has answered it very eloquently. Maybe just Member Nkondlo wanted to know how do we sort of prioritize the seriousness. Maybe what I said came across not very clearly, because in the two matters that were classified as fraud, I said it wasn't serious, because I was actually referring to the impact. But what I can say is that we've got provincial wide, we've got a zero tolerance to fraud. Therefore, no fraud is just seen as Mickey Mouse or something that we mustn't do about it. We respond to everything. But what I was actually referring to was in the cases that we had, there was no losses. The department did not suffer in any way. What does that say about the control environment was her follow-up question. The control environment does not prevent somebody from breaking the controls. That's an important point. The AGSA has given us a clean bill of health regarding our control environment, but that is from a material perspective. Somebody can still break the controls, but are they going to be picked up along the way that something went wrong? Yes, in both cases it was picked up, and therefore we can confirm that even though somebody tried to do something, it was prevented. In the case of a job scam, for example, somebody can put a letter together to offer somebody a job, but there's many controls down the line that still had to be followed or gotten past, which is impossible for that person eventually to have gotten the job. So that is an important point. Also, Mr. van Rensburg, Janssen van Rensburg also said, which is important to highlight, that all PFS recommendations are considered, but it's for the department to actually decide on whether it's actually practical in our environment to implement it, or sometimes we come up with alternatives, or sometimes we disagree and we actually state why we disagree. Also, in relation to Member Lekker's question about closed cases, when things are said to be closed on the PFS presentation, it means it's closed from their perspective, but the actual matter is not closed. It comes to the department then to do further work to confirm what the PFS have said, and it's only once the department has actually gone through the process of following all the recommendations and reporting back on it, is the matter in actual fact closed. Also, when it says on that presentation that it's a departmental referral, that is one form in which PFS actually gets their referral. Sometimes it comes from the department, sometimes it comes directly from the public. So I just wanted to sort of clarify that. And then there was a question about the maximum sanction. So the maximum sanction against, if individuals leave, there's nothing we can actually do from a disciplinary process, but all of the other, if there's criminality involved, of course, then they get reported to SAPS. But maybe to add to what Mr. Janssen van Rensburg said, sometimes if it's in case of suppliers, contractors, and so on, then we also report them for further investigation, for example, to the CIDB or the board that actually controls the security services, etc. And those kind of cases where there is confirmed, instances maybe of fraud, we will then take that into consideration in ensuring there is no future allocation of work from a supply chain perspective to those kind of contractors. So I thought just those little points just to sort of complement what Mr. Janssen van Rensburg spoke about in detail.
Thank you very much, Mr. Rahim. Members, is there any follow-up questions or new questions that you want to pose? I see one hand so far. Member Kodler, you can go ahead.
Thank you, Chair. Let me do my follow-ups and new questions, Chair. One, I just want to understand on the matter where a person would have then resigned, and if it was a case of fraud which has been substantiated, if I follow Member Lekker's logic, what then happens? Does the department know the forensic services able to then open a case with SAPS of that particular individual, because such fraud would have been a criminal offense according to, I think, the laws of the country. So I just want to understand that does the case get killed because somebody resigned and the department does not have any recourse because the person has resigned? If I can understand that. The second one, Chair, in light of what actually the president spoke about yesterday with what we've seen with whistleblowing, I'm interested to understand, perhaps just to be taken through, of what are the protections available if we do have whistleblower policies, in the various departments. What are some of the safeguards to protect the whistleblowers, that we think, have enabled people to actually feel comfortable and safe, to report things under anonymity, through either the department or through forensic services. And then, Chair, with what I think forensic services was relating as the quarterly risk assessments that they do, I'm interested to know whether during the the previous or the very 2025-2026 financial year, there would have been any notice or any issues flagged with the department, such as WCED and the Department of Infrastructure. And I'm raising this because if you look at the 36 cases within the two quarters of this financial year that we're dealing with, out of those 36 cases, 50%, that is 13, are from WCED, and 9 are of the Department of Infrastructure. So I would be interested whether that would have actually been a matter that either previously in the risk assessments that are done quarterly would have actually triggered, flagging, some of the risk issues as it relates, to issues to the fraud and ethics environment within that department, notwithstanding what I think Bashir explained, that it doesn't mean the fact that there is policies and the control environment has been, given a clean bill of health doesn't mean people are going to stop, But then, for me, it's important that with these particular cases, is it something that for the department that would have been raised? My last one's, Chair, relates to the slide that is on recommendations. And then I want to understand, and perhaps it is a discussion also for us as the committee, whether shouldn't the recommendations, and I would like to hear from the forensic services, whether shouldn't its recommendations be compulsory to departments? Because if therefore we would really require to have and be in sync with a transparent and a zero-free or zero tolerance to fraud and corruption, surely the investment made in the forensic investigations or services to go through all of this, to do the clinical work of finding if there is any wrongdoing. For me, there's an issue if such recommendations are still placed, at the goodness of the very department to say, yes, we can implement, yes, we will think about it. Shouldn't these be compulsory with an appeal process, of course, where if the department feels that we've got new evidence or we believe that the sanction or the recommendation is impractical? I'm just asking that particular question, Chair, to say lastly, since we do have the Department of Infrastructure here, in that table on recommendations and that graph there are 5 disciplinary actions. And can we get an update from Bashir if those disciplinary actions have been actioned by the department as we speak, including the one civil recovery that has been recommended. Actually, it's 2 that have been recommended by the forensic services. And if from the forensic services, when it comes to procedures and controls that you have suggested, can you give us in writing those so that we can be able to see them and be able to follow up during the annual report that we'll be sitting with later this year on these departments that you've submitted here with us? Thank you, Chair. That would be my last questions for this session. Thank you so much.
Thank you very much, Member Nkotla. If I can just add one question, and that's why I've asked about the timeframes. I've asked specifically, and Mr. Jansen did say that it's very difficult because of the nature that disciplinary action must be taken, all of that. So The question, why I'm asking a question, and I tried to get hold of it now, and I could not get hold of what I was looking for. But it was about somebody employed by the WCED, and I think it was a sexual offences allegation. So of course that must go through the different procedures, and then the newspaper comes and says sexual offender still getting paid by the department. So I don't know. I know I'm saying an allegation, and you're innocent until proven guilty. But I don't know how to, and I can't even say how to deal with that matter, because now you have allegations in the newspapers to say that this sexual offender is still working at the school, getting paid at the school, and the process takes forever. So I don't know. Maybe you can help me. How do we protect the public, protect the learner, and also to say that the Western Cape government doesn't play with when it comes to fraud, corruption, sexual offences. But that it was sometime in the paper where a person was still employed, still working, and there was allegations over the head. And I don't know what happened to the case, but I don't know. Maybe Mr. Jansen are going to help us with that. But the perception that somebody is, and I think it was the person had, I don't know if he had a previous offense, but maybe you can help me on that matter. Over to you, Mr. Jansen.
Thank you, Chairperson. So I'll again take it in the sequence. Member Nkondlo, when an official has resigned, but having been involved in commercial crime, yes, most certainly we do report those matters to the police. That is more often than not the only thing that we can do. And we do engage the police with that, and we keep on supporting the police if they need further evidence or they need testimony of our investigator. We follow through on those cases to ensure that there's accountability and not impunity in such cases. What are the protection and safeguards for whistleblowers to come to report comfortably and safely? I think I previously mentioned the structure and how the policy works, but specifically, practically, I think that is what you asked. To give you an example, we receive many allegations through our tip-offs line. Now, very often we find that a person, say in that tip-offs line, they want to remain anonymous. But even irrespective of that, if it's sent from a Gmail account, which is hosted outside of this country, there is no way for anyone, not me, neither anyone in the system in Western Cape government, to know who's that whistleblower. Again, to what I said before, we are interested in the allegation and to evaluate the allegation, because many times that's the only way to uncover corruption, because it's hidden, is by means of creating the opportunity to report those kind of matters. Other ways as well to approach us is to call us, and from a cell phone number, not an office number, and to say, I want to remain anonymous. And then our procedures kick in and we respect that anonymity. There can be walk-ins. We are based in a building away from the rest of the centre of Western Cape government. And we have even gone so far to meet whistleblowers elsewhere where they are comfortable to do so. Often we find whistleblowers after fraud awareness training sessions in rural areas, let's say George or so, and then they bring allegations. So we really try our best to ensure that whistleblowers are comfortable to approach us and they can do so safely. And the amount of allegations that we receive, I think, confirm that people are comfortable to report anonymously to us. The in terms of the risk assessment and what went the risk assessment in, let's say that you refer to the 25-26 financial year, and if issues are flagged with education and infrastructure. During a risk assessment is to contemplate the risks that a department may face, not necessarily that have been realized. We do factor those risks that realized by means of investigated cases and reported on into our processes, but we also are mindful of the allegations that we've received. And during our processes with the departments, in their different programs, we do factor that in. We consider the risks and facilitate those sessions as an external party to the department and ask the necessary questions, and then facilitating a process that those risks be rated, first inherently without the controls, and then thereafter taking the controls into account. And if it is above tolerance level, now that is in the risk management space, then action plans must be crafted to mitigate those risks. So we do facilitate those kind of risk assessments and try to address it by means of that proactive part of our work. Then Member Nkonlu, with regard to the slide regarding recommendations, should it be compulsory? So the right answer to that, it's tempting to say yes, but the department is the risk owner and the functionary that's responsible for the service or that is provided. Ultimately, they must confirm whether they are going to take disciplinary action and whether it's practical. Mr. Rahim referred to control recommendations, to take it through their system, and is the cost benefit worth the while. I must also then say to the committee that there are accountability mechanisms. An important one is the audit committees. All the recommendations are reported, and the implementation or not are reported to audit committees, and they ask the necessary questions and double check. So, and ultimately yourselves, SCOPA, an important stakeholder in ensuring accountability for the services that are rendered. So, but the way it has been set up, it is not compulsory. We are a service provider, internal service provider, providing forensic investigation and proactive forensic services to the departments, and we report to the heads of departments as service provider, and then they must take responsibility for those risks too. And take accountability ultimately for things that go wrong or that may go wrong. Whether our procedures, our controls on procedures can be reported to SCOPA, I do not think it is feasible, because in the manner that it is reported to the department, it is still very sensitive, and there's private, there's POPIA issues around it. So it would be difficult to do that, and more importantly, processes have not been completed There are further processes, whether it's disciplinary, whether court processes, and so on. So it's not completed. It still remains an allegation until the processes have been completed, and that would expose the Provincial Forensic Services, but also the department, to civil liability if that kind of information is then shared more broadly. But ultimately, again, let me emphasize, when you call me again to a meeting or a briefing like this, and if there's sufficient time to report on in what manner were recommendations implemented, I can report to yourselves at a high level, and you can ask the necessary questions. And I think that brings me to the chairperson's question. Chair, yes, it is concerning if there are newspaper reports about delays in respect of actions. I must confirm Provincial Forensic Services only deals with economic crime, fraud, theft and corruption, and gross irregularities, not other. That is typically a management issue. So I cannot deal with that specifically, but ultimately we are all accountable to SCOPA, and I'm not sure your processes, whether you can at own initiative issues that come to your attention, hold government to account. But ultimately, again, I must reiterate, the audit committee is also an important stakeholder in the governance and accountability framework. Thank you, Chairperson.
Thank you very much, Mr. Jansen. Mr. Rahim?
Thank you, Chair. I had two questions still. The one was in terms of the civil matters, the collection of any losses. All of those, if they were reported as such and we agreed on it, all of those I can confirm they are in the legal recovery process. The legal recovery process itself also takes very long, Chair, but we do report on an ongoing basis to the audit committee about where we are in that regard. Regarding the disciplinary cases, I can confirm that all disciplinary cases have been implemented or in the process of being implemented. Most of the times in the matters that you see before you, it was the instances where the parcel status of the individuals had to be flagged because they are out of the system. I want to also add to what Advocate Jansen van Rensburg said about in responding to the compulsory nature of the recommendations, that we have got, often our cases are highly complex, and we do not reject any recommendation made by PFS just willy-nilly without sound written response as to why we are not implementing it or we disagree. In some of these highly complex instances where recommendations are made, for example, if it impacts on irregular expenditure or fruitless and wasteful expenditure, we have, for example, or we will write a detailed submission to the Provincial Treasury as an additional party to agree with us in terms of our view about a PFS recommendation. So it is not us then that make the ultimate decision in that regard. Also, in terms of the oversight that is provided, of course, most of the oversight provided by the audit committee, as well as the AGSA, have access to all our PFS matters, how it was responded to. So they also provide oversight as to whether they agree the manner in which we've responded. And in addition to that, we also respond or report to the Public Service Commission and to the DPSA. So those are three additional bodies that actually look at how we responded to the PFS recommendations, Chair.
Thank you very much, Mr. Rahim. I see Member Pat Lecker stand us up. Member Lecker, over to you.
Thank you, Chairperson. Good morning once again. Chairperson, as a follow-up to the presentation that has been made by both DOI as well as the forensic departments, I want to get an understanding, Chair. The presentation that has been presented before us today, I want to indicate that it's important information. It's information that as members that we're supposed to have, so that we get to understand what exactly is the forensic unit dealing with, the extent into which they go into investigating matters that are brought before or for their attention. But I want to ask a question and make a humble request, Chairperson, because when I look at this information before us, I see it, or would like to term it as a need to know information. And I would like to ask, when and how can this committee on SCOPA can be presented with a detailed information, especially on matters that have been closed, not on matters that are still subject to care or on matters that are under investigation, but on matters that have been closed, we get a detailed information on those matters. What were those matters? What involved what was the nature of the investigation, and who were the person or persons that were investigated? Because tomorrow I'll be asked what matters have been investigated by WCPP on issues of fraud and compliance, and I would say we've got 5 reference number or 36 reference numbers, and out of those, these are matters that have been finalized. But what was entailed in those matters? So I want to get an understanding as to when can the committee be given a detailed report on those matters? Because I think as public reps, yes, we were sworn into confidentiality, and when there are serious matters, we get to have meetings under a closed session. So it would be in my interest as a public rep and as somebody who must do oversight over this department to understand what exactly is happening, because it would be amiss of me having reference numbers whilst the officials within the department or the HOD and the MEC are privy on the details of this information. So really, Chair, I'm interested in knowing if we can, through you, request to have a detailed meeting, or we can then secure another meeting with the current colleagues that are here to come and make a presentation. Thank you, Chair.
Thank you, Member Lecker. Mr. Jansa Redberg.
Thank you, Chairperson. Member Lecker needs it from the question, needs more details about the nature of matters, and on the slide, cases finalized for the 2 quarters are reflected the 12 cases that were finalized. I'm available to answer any questions regarding the nature on any of those 12 cases. I've prepared and I'm here, and we can do it now.
Thank you, Mr. Jansa Redberg. Member Lecker.
No, thank you so much, Chairperson. I appreciate the positive response to it. And I don't know if we have enough time, but I'll first kick in, Chair, by getting an understanding. In first, the matter that is said to have involved in the department, within the department of the GOI. One would be the case where allegedly a kind of register or something was supposedly used to get a all right. First, let's start with the one for the extension of a contract which has been condoned. Can we get detailed there as to what company was implicated, which officials were responsible for extension of a contract which was later condoned, and what were the emergency situation or situations that led to the extension of this contract? And in terms of the controls, what exactly systems or controls were put in place in order to circumvent this from occurring again? Two, Chairperson, in a case where it is alleged, I think I've made a reference, PFS 23_24_0_4 zeros and a 1 under WCED. What were those matters? And maybe if I can simply say matters that involved the Department of Western Cape Education, can we get a clarity exactly and the detailed information on those instances? Thank you, Chair.
Thank you very much, Member Lekker. I don't see any other hands. Mr. Jansen van Rensburg, over to you.
Thank you, Chairperson. The first case that we referred to was the one on Mr. Rahim's presentation. I don't know whether the committee would like to ask that question to him.
Mr. Rahim?
Chair, the first case, it relates to a project, a housing project in the Grabouw region of the former Department of Human Settlements. That was a contract extension by the former Department of Human Settlements. When we became DOI on the 1st of April 2023, after that, with the finalization subsequent to that of the PFS case, which was basically last year, now DOI's responsibility was to have that irregular expenditure condoned. So the contract, I don't have the contractor name here. I'm not sure whether I can actually release that, but it is on a Grabouw project with respect to the former Department of Human Settlements. We did a detailed investigation into it. We completed, in terms of the irregular expenditure framework of National Treasury, we completed a detailed submission that was sent independently to the Provincial Treasury, who then, after looking at all the facts involved, actually condoned the irregular expenditure for the contract extension due to the department actually nonetheless having received value for that particular contract. In relation to the officials involved, I did mention that none of the officials involved in that work for the department anymore, and therefore their personnel numbers were flagged on personnel. And one of the officials that was still working for infrastructure, who was an official from the former DHS, that person passed away in the process. Was there anything to do in relation to internal control? No, because after DHS and the Department of Transport and Public Works merged, the new Department of Infrastructure Internal Control System is being followed, and therefore there was nothing in addition to be done even though this particular PFS case was received. So that is my response in relation to that one, Chair.
Thank you very much. I'm going to give Member Nkontlo an opportunity. I just want to say the request from Member Pat Lecker was that because of the nature of the allegations, I'm a bit just a bit concerned because Member Lecker did say, listen, we can discuss this in a closed meeting because I've already do we release names here? Do we? And I would feel comfortable if that is in a closed session, because if names are going to be mentioned and so on. So I'm just and I don't know, Member Lecker, if that is your feeling, because you want to go into detail, and I don't want names to be released here, and it should not be released. And it's open in the public domain. So I'm going to give Member Nkontlo. I'm just thinking, ahead, and maybe we must just look at these cases, Member Lecker, and then have it in maybe in closed camera and really go into the cases. So I'm just thinking that. Let me just, before Member Nkontlo, let me just give Ms. Robson opportunity to speak, and then I'm going to give you a Member Nkontlo. Ms. Robson, over to you.
Thank you, Chair, and thank you for giving me priority. Listen, Chair, I would actually support the closed meeting because even what Ruthven is going to share with you will be in a, can I call it a sanitized state, as like Bashir did. So yeah, if you want the actual information, I think we must do it in camera. Thanks, Chair.
Thank you very much, Member Nkontlo.
Thank you, Chair. Chair, I think you have partly covered me, I think, in your response about, sharing information to this committee, and where there is a requirement which would have to be explained of any confidentiality, that there are provisions made to have engagements in camera. Because one of the things that I was concerned about is the forensic services saying that they cannot share information with us because of that it may land, I don't know where. We are members of the committee here. We are Parliament. It is our duty and our responsibility, and the Constitution allows us to do our oversight. And in doing oversight, we require information. That is why I would have requested, Chair, that in the recommendations, they would have written procedures and controls in the Department of Infrastructure, the Department of Health, in the Department of, I think, Social Development and WCED. And one is requesting that those recommendations, so that we understand what is contained in those recommendations. Because when we have to do our oversight, audit engagement towards the end of the year with the audit report, we need that information to sort of reference to this engagement that we had. So I'm requesting once again, Chair, as part of something that must be registered, that information. And if Forensic Services is saying any of that information is confidential, let that be explained so that we understand. But the information is something that we are requesting, including what we have just concluded with some of the issues raised by Member Lecker. One issue I wanted to check with the Department of Infrastructure is whether there has been any situation where the department would have actually flagged a contractor with CIDB, because I had earlier on that mentioned as one of the interventions that they would do. So I want to ask whether there has been any case where the Department of Infrastructure, as it has started, or if they know in the past where it would have been done, where a contractor would be flagged with a CIDB, and what would be the meaning from that action? Would that mean that particular contractor now is sort of redlined and won't actually be sort of be contracted again with this department or any other department of the province or government in general? Just want to understand the meaning of that action. If the department can just explain that to me. Thank you so much, Chair.
Thank you very much. I'm going to give to Mr. Rahim now. I think Advocate Jansen van Rensburg, I think the committee will deliberate after the when you left, and we have our discussions. We'll deliberate and get back to you on a letter. I just think the way that Member Lecker and other members maybe want to engage, I think that should be in camera, because like Ms. Robson said, you still give us information, but it's sanitized. We want to cut to the bone of the information. So I think that should be in camera. Mr. Rahim, over to you.
Thank you, Chair. Not while DOI has been in existence, we haven't reported anything to the CIDB. We did report a matter relating to the former Department of Transport and Public Works to the CIDB. However, the outcome, so what actually happens then, the CIDB then does their own investigation, and the CIDB come up with their own sanction, which could be a broad range of sanctions against their own members, because the person would be graded at the CIDB. So what that sanction can be, it depends on the CIDB outcome. So we've had one from a previous year, not as DOI, that I can confirm with yourselves. Yeah, and then also impact internally. Impact internally is this, that in the supply chain management process, when we do our risk analysis, when we actually award tenders, at that point in time, we can take into consideration the outcome of investigations that we are aware of in deciding whether we should actually award to a particular contractor that had been recently found, to be possibly guilty of fraud or not, though it still has to go through the court process. So we have got the prerogative then internally in our risk assessment process to actually not award a contract to a bidder.
Thank you very much, members. I see? I'm going to give you an opportunity, Mr. Advocate Jansen van Rensburg. But members, I think that okay. Let me give you first, member. Then I'll ask the members if there's any follow-ups. I think that is it. I think we've made a decision on that one. But Advocate Jansen, over to you.
Thank you, Chairperson. Just another dimension and how the system works is, as I mentioned earlier, we are a service provider to the departments, to the heads of the departments, and we report to the heads of department. So once we report, they become the owner of that report, and they have to consent to the release of information. That is our process, and that is our agreement. So when the committee requests, let's say let's take an example, these 12 cases that are mentioned on this slide, a specific case or category of cases, we will need to involve the heads of departments there too, because it's actually their cases, and they are ultimately accountable for that. That's just a comment on the side from my side. Thanks.
No, thank you for that. We will package it with your advice. We will package it in that way that we do have the HOD also present in that meeting. Members, is that it for the Provincial Forensic Services and the Department of Infrastructure? I don't see any other hands, and then we will go over to our committee business. So I just from my side, thank you very much for the Department of Infrastructure and Provincial Forensic Services for the presentations and also the answering of the questions. Thank you very much and enjoy your day. The committee will stay behind, but you are now excused from the meeting. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Chair. Thank you.
Thank you, Chair. Bye.
Bye-bye.
Thank you. Bye-bye.
Okay, members, thank you very much. We'll get to that. Can we just ask for, before we move on with I'll do the resolutions and actions, I think at the very end. I just want us to note the following, that we've dealt with the Provincial Forensic Services and also Department of Infrastructure. The matter of, you saw on the agenda is the reporting of irregular and wasteful expenditure by the Western Cape Department of Health and Wellness incurred, and that matter was then alleged by Dr. Samuel Isaacs. I have spoken to the procedural officer previously and also this morning. We are still waiting for the legal advice, the legal opinion from the legal advisors, so we cannot deal with that matter now. That is still outstanding. We've said we're going to ask for legal advice, a legal opinion, so we have not received that. So I'm asking members that stand over to our next meeting until we have the legal opinion and advice on that matter. Members, is that fine? Thank you. Member Leon van Wyk says that's fine. Other members, you're happy with that? There's nothing that we can discuss if we don't have the legal opinion in front of us. Hopefully, we will have the legal opinion and everything in front of us to discuss it in our next meeting. Members, can we move on? And then I am going to go over to Mr. Dustin Davids. He's going to give us the PAC second quarter activity report, and then the third quarter, and then he's going to give us the draft minutes of the 10th of December 2025. So remember, we'll have a proposer and a seconder to adopt those reports and the minutes. Mr. Davids, over to you.
Thank you, Honourable Chairperson. Chair, through you, I'm just going to go to the minutes, Chairperson. This, oh, sorry, this is the Chair. If I can just go to the, see, this was for the 22. If I can just go to the draft quarterly reports, Chairperson, for July to September, Chairperson. Chair, this is just standard procedure for reporting to the committee chair, and then basically just adopting a Chairperson. So, Chairperson, on page 1, Chairperson, it's basically just the membership of the committee chair from July to September, Chairperson. And then basically just the mandate of the committee chair. Chairperson, we have the department that reports to the committee. That's all of the departments, Chairperson, as well as the as well as its entities, Chairperson, for the period under review, Chair. Chair, for the period under review, Chair, there were 3 meetings, Chair. It was the 8th of August, Chair, where the Department of Mobility and GMT came to brief the committee, Chairperson. The 12th of September, it was Department of Agriculture and its entity, Casidra, Chairperson. These were all on the previous resolutions of the committee to request these departments to come and brief the Chairperson. Chair, and then the 26th of committee, Chair, there was an in-committee meeting, Chairperson, basically where the committee basically dealt with the materiality of Mr. Klute and Cape Nature, and also the allegation that was brought forward by Member Barnes, Chair, regarding irregularities within the Department of Mobility, Chairperson. That was successfully dealt with by the committee. In Chairperson, basically on the 3 meetings, Chairperson, there was only one apology from Member Lacker on the 12th of September, Chairperson. And then we've also had some alternate members in the meeting, Chairperson. Chairperson, there was no meetings that were postponed during the period. There were no legislation because this committee does not deal with legislation, Chairperson. There were no oversight visits, no interprovincial visits, and no international visits, Chair, international study visits, Chair. If I can, heading 14, Chairperson. Chairperson, then basically the committee was basically invited to attend the SATCOPAC conference in Eswatini, Chair, but that was during the 27th and the 31st of October, Chair, and the committee could not attend due to the annual report process that took place, Chair, and that was communicated to the South African Association of Public Accounts Committees, Chair. Chairperson, then basically there were no workshops or conferences that were attended, Chairperson, during the period. And then just the committee had a budget that was allocated of 186,000, Chair. As at the 30th of September, Chair, it was recorded that only 5,300 was spent, Chair, and there was a balance of 180,000 Rand and 735 that was left over, Chairperson. And that's the end of the second quarter report, Chair.
Members, can I have a proposer and a seconder for the report? Member Leon van Wyk, do you propose?
I'm proposing, Chair. Thanks.
Thank you. Can I have a seconder? Member van Binnen, are you seconding?
I'm seconding indeed, Chair.
Thank you very much. Thank you very much. Members can, thank you, Mr. David. Let's move on.
Thank you, Chair. Then basically for the third quarter, Chairperson, of last year, Chair, this was during the annual report period, Chair. Chairperson, once again, just the departments and the membership, Chairperson. Chair, there were 13 meetings, Chair, as the members can relate to a Chairperson, the 13th of October, 14th, 15th of October, 16th, 17th, 20th, 21st, 23rd, 24th, 27th, 28th, and the 30th, and the 31st of October, Chairperson. And Chairperson, this report was compiled each day in the chamber while the meetings were ongoing, Chair. So, yeah, as the meetings were going on, Chair, every day these tables were populated, Chair. And then as well, the members' attendance were also populated, Chairperson. For example, as you can see yourself, Chair, on the 27th of October, you actually put in an apology, Chair, and Member Van Wyk was the acting Chairperson on this day, Chairperson, on the 27th of October. And then, Chairperson, all of these tables, they were just basically populated every day, Chairperson, as the meetings went on, Chairperson. Chair, then basically, Chair, once again, there were no meetings postponed. SCOPA doesn't deal with legislation, Chair. There were no oversight visits, no interprovincial visits, no international study visits, Chair. Chair, once again, just for reporting purposes, the 27th to the 31st, Chair, October, there was an invite from SATCOPAC, Chair, and it also needs to be reported in this quarter that the committee did not attend, Chair. And then as well, Chair, the 21st to the 22nd of November, Chair, the committee was invited to a SAPAC meeting, Chair, but that meeting, Chairperson, did not take place, Chair, but just for purposes of recording, it needs to be recorded that the committee received an invite, Chairperson, to attend, even though the committee did not attend, Chair. Chair, basically just discussing with our finance department, Chair, that this 5,376, Chair, is exactly the same as the second quarter, Chairperson. From here, Chair, and it will reflect in the fourth quarter report, Chairperson, that will be tabled in April, Chair, to the committee. All of the expenditure with regards to the annual reports, like the adverts, Chairperson, a portion of that 30,000 has been allocated or has been borne from the budget of the Public Accounts Committee, Chair. So that will be then added to this 5,376, Chair, and then the balance will be a little bit less, Chairperson. But Chair, it looks this Chair is the only meeting for the Public Accounts Committee for this quarter, Chair. The next meeting under your direction will probably happen in April, Chair. So, Chair, it is anticipated that at the end of the fourth quarter, Chair, this 180,000 probably would come down with around about another, say, 5 to 10,000 rand, Chairperson, because it's not only the adverts but the catering as well during the annual report, Chair, that must still be added to the total expenditure, and it will then reduce the balance, Chair. So we're looking at a end of financial year balance, Chair, of between 165 and 170,000 rand, Chair, that will be given back to WCPP, Chairperson. And Chair, I'm not sure if the members are aware, but there will be a Chairperson's Forum, Chair of Chairs meeting on Thursday, Chair, where the new budget allocation per committee will be communicated to each Chairperson so that there can be proper planning, etc., going forward, Chair, regarding the various standing committee activities, Chairperson. Chair, so that is it for the third quarter, Chair. Thank you.
Mr. Davids, just go to the first page. I see you've got CF there, it's FC. The very first page, the others is all FC, but that one is
FC, Chair.
Yeah,
so it's FC, that's the only thing. That future.
And then I think the catering for the annual reports, I don't know what was it per day, but if that was 10 to 13 days, that should be quite a bit of money, and the adverts. But okay, we'll see after that. Members, are you happy with the report? Can I have a proposal and a second of the report? Member Van Wyk and then Member.
I'll propose. I'm happy to propose. Thank you.
Member Van Wyk propose.
Member
Peter
Johnson,
are you second?
I am second. Yes, Chairperson.
Thank you very much. Thank you, Mr. Davids. Let's continue.
Chair, thank you. I'm just pulling up the minutes, Chair, of the Public Accounts Committee, Chair. That's the last minutes that we had, Chairperson. If you can just indulge me for a minute, Chair. I had the wrong set of minutes open, Chair. I'm just opening the folder for the minutes, Chair, for the draft. For the draft minutes, Chair. There we go. I'm just opening it up, Chair. There we go. So
you say, here we go. We don't see anything yet.
Sorry, Chair. Okay, I'm just sharing my screen here with you, Chair. And just, there we go. Okay, let me just open up here, Chair. I just want to get to the MS Teams. Okay, there we go. I'm just sharing it now, Chair. Chair, can you see it, Chair?
Yes, we can see it now. Thank you.
Thank you, Chair. Chair, so this was the last meeting for the 2025 calendar year, Chair. It was basically where the committee met to consider and adopt its report on the annual reports of the departments and the entities of the Western Cape Government, Chair, for the 2024-25 financial year, Chair. It was a virtual meeting that occurred on Wednesday the 10th at 8 o'clock in the morning, Chairperson. Chairperson, if I can just go down, Chair, it was basically standard, Chair. There was just welcome and apologies. There was a apology from Member Van Minen, Chair, because Member Van Minen was busy with some constituency work and she could not attend the meeting, Chair. And then basically, Chair, it was basically where the report was stable and it was then proposed and seconded. Chair, Member Benedicta Van Minen later came into the meeting, even though she did put in an apology. She came into the meeting around about 15 minutes after the meeting started, Chair. Hence, we've got Member Leon van Wyk that proposed and Member Benedicta Van Minen that seconded that report, Chairperson. And then, Chairperson, there was also all of these minutes of the annual reports, Chairperson. All of those meetings, Chair, and that was also adopted by the committee, Chair. And then as well, Chair, as you mentioned earlier on, Chair, that the ledger reporting of the regular expenditure, Chair, that was to be received by the to be sent to the legal services unit for a legal opinion, Chair. Chair, so that was basically the meeting, Chair. The meeting ended at 8:40, Chair.
Thank you very much, Mr. Davids. Can I have a proposer and a seconder for the minutes of the meeting of the 10th of December? There's a proposer by Member Peter Johnson. Can I have a seconder, please? Thank you, Member Leon van Wyk, as a seconder. Thank you very much. So that deals with the quarter report and also deals with draft minutes of the 10th of December 2025. Members, now I'm going to give over just to Mr. Davids. Did you capture any resolutions? And then I'll just ask the members to also give their input when it comes to those resolutions. Mr. Davids, did you capture any?
Yes. Chair, thank you very much, Chair. Yes, I have captured some requests for information, Chair, and some resolutions as well, Chair. From Member Nkondlo, basically requesting a written report on the status of the cases presented on by PFS to this committee on the 13th of February, Chair. So basically, Chair, what is the status, what's the implementation status of these cases that was presented today, Chair? And then Chairperson Member Nkondlo also then requested, as well as Member Van Wyk, that in future that the Provincial Forensic Services, when they brief the committee, that they include what did how the departments implemented the recommendations by the Provincial Forensic Services, Chair. Because, Chair, normally what happens, Chairperson, having worked at the Provincial Forensic Services myself, Chairperson, they will do investigations. Then they will, at the end of the investigations of the report to the HODs, they will make recommendations, Chairpersons, for the HOD to then apply his or her mind and then take the appropriate steps, Chair. So that was the recommendations that the PFS basically report back to this committee on the recommendations that was, or the actions that was taken by the departments, the consequence management, Chairperson, taken by the departments on the recommendations of the PFS, Chair. Chair, then as well, Chair, the committee basically resolved that they will meet again with the Provincial Forensic Services in camera to discuss basically all of the forensic cases, Chairperson, the nature of the cases, the persons that were investigated, and the consequence management procedures employed into these cases, Chair. So that will be, Chair, through you, Chair, once we meet, Chair, you will probably give direction on the scheduling when that meeting will take place, whether April or May or June, Chairperson. And then that meeting, that confidential meeting chairperson will be then set up with this committee and with the Provincial Forensic Services Chair. And as well, chairperson, there was a request that when they do come and brief that the HODs of DOI, Health, Social Development and Western Cape Education Department come and sit in and then also come and account for what they implemented, consequence management on these cases, and also to avoid a future recurrence of such incidences, sir, Chair. As well, Chair, as internal control recommendations. So how have they strengthened their internal controls to avoid future recurring instances as were investigated by the Provincial Forensic Services Chairperson? That's what I captured, Chair. I don't know if there's any other inputs from the members, Chairperson.
Thank you, Mr. Davids. Members, is there any other further inputs, or are you happy with those resolutions? Members, over to you. Member Kondlo, I see your hand. You can go ahead.
No, Chair, I am covered with the resolutions. I just wanted, I missed to ask, when the forensic services say they are a service provider to the department, are they not part of the office or the department of the Premier? Are they consulting services? I just wanted to ask this, I think, as I think the colleague was speaking the last, so I didn't want to enter into a one-on-one. If somebody has got that information, just to help me understand. But I'm okay and support the resolutions. Thank you, Chair.
Any other members need to... Member Kondlo, is that a new hand? Is that a new hand, Member Kondlo? Okay, Mr. Davids?
No, Chair.
Okay, thank you, Mr. Davids.
Chairperson, to assist in answering Member Nkondlo's inquiry, Chair, the Provincial Forensic Services can be viewed as being a consultant to the department's chair. Basically, Chair, if I can just put it in context, Chair, if you look at the centralized services within the Department of the Premier, like your HR services, which have been centralized, Chair, and you look at your IT services, which have been centralized, Chair, those two units provide transversal services to all of the departments except Health and Education, Chairperson. So the Provincial Forensic Services deals on exactly the same modus operandi, Chair, where they provide services to all of the departments, including Health and Education, Chairperson.
No, thank you for that. Thank you for that. I think, they fall under the Department of the Premier, but they act as a service provider for departments. So departments, they still fall under the Department of the Premier, but they act as a service provider. Thank you. Members, Member Nkondlo, we're going to close now, but Member Nkondlo, the one question that I was just thinking now, what you said, say PFS gives the recommendations, go back to the department, and the department now look at it. And I think if I now just remember correctly, you said when all that money is invested in investigations and all of that now goes back to the department, it's almost like we investigating again as a department, and it's almost like wasting resources. And it also prolongs the matter. I'm not very clear on why that process should take so long. Member Nkondlo, was that your thinking? Because that is what I got. It goes back to the department, and you've asked a question. So I think we must also try to sort that out and see how can the process be leaner and quicker. Member Nkondlo?
Yes, no, thank you, Chair. I concur exactly. I think that is one aspect, especially on the resources that get to be spent. Somebody, including, if you look at some of the cases, they say departmental referral. So it means the matter would have been referred by the department. It goes to this forensic services, for investigation. They complete the investigation, they make recommendations, go back to the department, and then the department may say, no, we do not agree. We want to further investigate, or we do not agree. That's why I said maybe you have new information or something. For me, I think this is one of the things that is gonna, become a wasteful expenditure, but also, kill the very spirit of what is the intention of this, but also of ensuring swift investigation that gets to the outcome. Because whilst the cloud is lingering, either over the individual concerned or alleged, or that particular department, I don't think the image of that individual or of the department, it is okay to have it, blacklisted for long whilst an investigation is up. So I think that is why I was saying either make the recommendations compulsory, because you have done an investigation and you would have referred the matter to the very entity. So why question them later on? So I think that for me is an issue that we'll have to ponder, around also the turnaround time and also the swiftness of this particular process, so that it is not just bureaucratized unnecessarily.
No, thank you for that. That is, I think the committee feels most probably the same, because that was my thing. It takes a long time, if but we can discuss that, and maybe Mr. Davids, that can be part, just to explain that process and tell us, it goes to provincial forensic services, go back to the department, they again investigate. So we just need to understand that, and why the duplication, or why the the extra resources to resolve the matter. Members, is there any other thing before I close the meeting? Can I close? Is that fine? I don't see any hands. So members, the meeting is adjourned, and thank you, Mr. Davids. We wish you well in your future endeavors, and thank you, members, for your time and your inputs. The meeting is adjourned.
Thank you very much. Bye-bye.